everybody. Welcome to another Training Thursday. I am excited. I'm always excited. You'll hear it on the podcast. You'll hear it in here, but I am quite an excited type of person. But today we are talking about the state that you are in. So not the state of Australia that you're in, or the US, or wherever you happen to be, but the state, the excitedness that you have, the challenges that you have, and the state that it puts you in. And we're talking about how we can cultivate that and how it'll change the way that you can show up for your business, the way that you can show up for your clients, the way that you show up in general, and how it actually changes your stories that are going on in your head, and then it'll change the way that you're doing things. Hey Eileen, and hi everybody else who is joining us or watching on the replay. If you're new to either my YouTube channel or here in the Naturpreneur Hub, this happens every Thursday. We have free trainings on the things that are coming up for our profession and our tribe, and things, useful tips and hints on how to get through these things. So today is all about how to change your state and how that actually changes your results. And this has come up a whole bunch recently for me, and I was listening to an incredible podcast the other day. One of my favorite mentors, Jonathan Fields, was on his Good Life Project, and he was interviewing Todd Herman, and it was extraordinary to understand the inner workings of the people who are at the top of their game, the top 2% of people who are either Olympic champions, who are, running races, who are CEOs and other people who are at the top of their game, and how to actually change the state that you're in, especially if you're having a bad day, or especially if you've been telling yourselves these stories of failure or how something didn't turn out last time, or these other types of things. And what he was talking about was the notion of taking on like a personality, taking on a superhero or a heroine kind of personality that would get you through it. So part of it is using your imagination. Part of it is that visualization, and whatever it takes to get you through it will get you through it. So he has an amazing new book that's out specifically about that. But it started me thinking about how that changing our state changes the way that we show up. And for instance, when I was writing my first book, at the beginning, I was so pumped and so excited about it. It just kind of flowed through me because I was actually in an excited state. I'd made myself so I had convinced myself how much this was going to be so valuable to people. My bigger why was in there. There was a whole bunch of stuff. And then towards the end of writing my book, it felt like a slog. I had to get up in the mornings and I had to do my 500 words, and then I had to do the edits. And the state that I did that with really changed the way that I showed up. I wasn't getting the same amount of words out. The results weren't the same. My marketing wasn't the same when I was coming from that state. And that perpetuated a story that was going on in my head, which again went around in this big spiral, kind of down this way, not this way, which could have been a hell of a lot more useful. Hey Christina, nice to see you. Thank you for your insights today in the hub. It has been beautiful and inspiring to hear. So for those of you who are in those states, those states are, I really wanted to start up the conversation, and it's a conversation. I'd love for you guys to interact in this conversation, whether you are commenting around this video somewhere, wherever you have found this video, about what helps you change your state. Some of the things that I have learned over the years have been all about the things that we often tell others to do is often the thing that we need the most. And as practitioners, it's very likely we're going to be getting into these situations where we're giving other people advice or directions about how they need to change their state, ideas on how they could change their state. And one of the things that I found as a practitioner helping people with burnout, and being a person with burnout myself, I came to notice, was having those things that are in your life that really uplift you. You'll know those feelings and those senses because you'll feel it with your senses. You'll feel it in your belly. You'll feel the level of excitement. You'll feel different feelings that you wouldn't get from something else. And I used to call it your enjoyment. So not the things that you enjoy, but enjoyment. So where do you feel joy? And if you've forgotten what it is, it's time to explore it. And so what places and spaces, like physical spaces, and what experiences bring you a feeling of joy? When I used to ask this question, a lot of people who were in that little bit of burnout or who were mums who would put everybody else first, it was really hard to begin with to answer that question. And so it's a really important question to ask, because unless you are asking it and you have an awareness about it, you're not even going to explore it, and it's not even going to be on your radar. So it can be really disillusioning when you're by yourself in an office space, you don't have clients coming in, and you do forget that joy, and then you have to go home and you have to do all of the home stuff only to get to work to try and get the money to pay for all of the things. And I've been there. And in between home and work, there's this level of joy that kind of dips out. So how can we create a state? And how do you create your state to shift and change? One of my biggest questions is always, what 5 things bring you joy? And if you can't write down 5, write down 1, and then start to ruminate over how those other things bring yourselves joy. So if you are listening, pop in the things that bring you joy. Now, I know from treating thousands of clients with this same thing and helping and mentoring thousands of practitioners, the same thing comes, the same kind of top 3 happen more frequently than others. One of the things that brings people joy is time out. So time away, and Arianna Huffington talks about this in her book Thrive, a third space, having a third space. So there's work, there's home, and then there's this third space. Now that third space for you might be a family trip away every year. If the family side of things might give you a little bit more stress, it might actually be a trip away for yourself. Travel and having a space that isn't those is one of the most, most extraordinary things that you can experience. Now, if it's not as far as travel goes, when it comes to changing the state in which you look at the world and how you show up, maybe it is having a third space in your environment. So you might have a third space of going out and about. Maybe you've got a veranda, maybe you've got a little courtyard, maybe you've got some other space other than the really, really distinct home and work scenario. Maybe it's a gym, maybe it's a local park, maybe it's somewhere else that you actually feel joy, and it changes the way that you think, changes the way that you feel on the inside. And if I want to get all naturopathic on you guys and biochemical, those feelings of enjoyment are going to increase your endorphins and your other neurotransmitters that you want to feel really good with and juiced up with, and that's going to create a new neural pathway. To create that new neural pathway, it opens up opportunities to think differently. It opens up opportunities to think innovatively and creatively. Things can come through you when you change your state. Now, same thing happens, if we want to talk physics-wise. If you're changing your state from ice to water to steam, you're jiggling things up a little bit. It's not the same state that it's always been. If we want to keep ice the way it is, then we keep it in the freezer at exactly the same temperature and it won't change, right? If we want to change its state, we jiggle it up a little bit and create it into a different environment, and then all of a sudden it melts and turns into water, and it has very different properties and can come up with different things that it can do compared to being in this state. And then if we really want to jiggle things up a bit, we heat it right up and we end up having these excited molecules that run around everywhere, and that is steam. So our cells and our energy is the same. And then we sit and we wonder why, sitting at home or sitting in our office and doing the same thing in the same freezer, and we're all stuck, and we're wondering how things are going to change when it comes to our marketing, how we're going to figure out that MailChimp thing, how we're going to change the way that we are doing things so that more people come in to see us. Yet we're stuck in the same way that we've always done things, physically, emotionally, mentally, and otherwise. So that change of state, one of the top ones is going into having your third space. And so who have we got here? Mickey, hey, how you doing, lovely? Kirsten speaks about the beach. This brings us to number 2, is one of the most amazing places to change your state in, having a space and an environment to change it in, has nature involved in it. Now, if you guys have been part of the scavenger hunt, you might have had a little taster of that, even by things like having your plants around. And that's like a micro version of having a different state. It'll change the way that the atoms are moving around. So Kirsten says the beach. Jackie says camping in the bush. I've had people talk about standing on mountains. I've had people talk about being in the ocean. I mean, once you're submerged in a wave that hasn't completely dumped you, it changes your state, right? For those people who surf, I hear it all the time that it's one of the biggest experiences that you can have, to have a third space and nature all wrapped up in one, and be at one with that really changes your state. So what are some of the other places and spaces and environments that change your state? I talked about travel, and it's one of mine for sure. It changes the way that I think, and I creatively come up with new ideas. I'll often come up with ideas for books or projects or other things. Being in an airplane, you know, I'm a flyer, so I love being in an airplane. It's like being closer to whatever is available to me. So that's another one. But what are your places and spaces that change your state? So of course, we can create sanctuaries, we can create environments that change our state for us. So we can create environments that are full of the things that do make us feel at ease, that really change the way that our nervous systems show up. So instead of being freaked out or stuck like an ice brick all the time, we can really help or hinder the way that we show up through the state that we are in. Snorkeling by the reef without the kids. I love that little sideline bit. Well done, Natalie. I love that. Being out in nature, absolutely. Marianne says having a bath. I love having a bath too. It was one of the biggest game changers for me to have 5 baths a week. I know it sounds indulgent, but that was the thing. I needed to be able to experience what that felt like to change my state. So this is an exploration of how you are changing your state and how you change the way that you think and the way that you feel so that you get a different result. So the top 2 there are how you can change your third space, having a different environment to be in, connecting with nature, and that might also mean connecting with your puppy dog, or it might be connecting with your fur baby, or it might be connecting with, I don't know, some of you guys might have snakes, but whatever it is, there's a connection with nature involved. And so the third most frequent answer I get to this question about changing your state is about who you spend your time with. And Natalie alluded to it, without the kids. Now, we've all had the most amazing, magical holidays with our families, and that we look back on and we go, wow. But then we go on another holiday and we realize we might have been looking through rose-colored glasses about those moment-to-moment things that happen. And overall, we have these great memories, but in those moments to moments, depending on who you are spending that time with, will change your state, right? So yes, all of us love our families. And at the same time, we can have some really challenging times with those people who are closest to us. So one of the ways that I change my state around business and around the way that I'm dealing with different things and my projects and things like that is to hang out with my business besties. And I just got off the phone to Denise Duffield-Thomas, who is going to be presenting at the NatX, which is super exciting. And we just recorded her podcast, and she was talking about one of her game changers was to really connect with business besties, people who are on the same wavelength. Now, this is super important to me because I'm a relator and a communicator and a connector. And so the people that I surround myself with can change my state. Now, it's very likely you've had those people in your life, those friends that, you know, they've just got a different worldview. They just want to focus in on the things that might not be as valuable to talk about at the time and aren't as inspiring or aren't as, you know, changing the way that we're thinking or challenging the way that we're thinking. You might have those people around you that, you know, and we see it all the time with our clients, the ones that don't get the results that they want is because often the people that are in their household aren't on board with the changes. They still want to drink the Coca-Cola. They still want to eat the pies. And having people around you who are just perpetuating that, that lack or that way of thinking it's going to be so much more challenging to get a different result. Same thing happens for us in business. When you're surrounded by people who are just saying, go and get another job or go and do this other thing, or maybe when are you going to give up on your ideas, then it's really going to change the result you get versus having people around who are like, oh my goodness, I totally get it. This totally sucks right now and it'll be different eventually. Or people who are going, oh, have you thought about it this way? Or you thought about it this way? And having a worldview and a mind shift because of the people around you reflecting stuff back at you can be one of the most easy ways of changing your state, is to change who you are hanging out with. So what else do we have? Oh, Michelle, for me, it's a new environment to get energy flowing. New environment. Yes. Beautiful. Love that. The word new is one of the biggest ones. For me, that's what travel brings. And it's one of the reasons I don't generally go back to the same place over and over again, is because there is a newness and a freshness to the way that you see things when you're essentially seeing it from a new perspective. So new environments that have a third space aren't the same ones that you're always in. An environment that has nature in it, or a connection to nature or natural things, be it animals or otherwise. And who you are hanging out with can change your state. For others, it might be having an environment that's inspiring when it comes to art or creativity. When you have that reflected back at you, it's amazing. For some of you, it's music, and we've just had the Naturapreneur Movement Spotify playlist go on just last night. So some of you, it might be sounds that change your state, right? And we've got 50 songs on there at the moment, and I'm sure it's going to explode to about 100 different songs, but they change our state. And many of you guys are aromatherapists or have a background in the senses, and even smells can change your state and how you show up in the world. And some of you guys have even experienced toxic environments, will really know what the difference is between having one that's inspiring you or tiring you. So who have we got? Christina says, hanging out with high vibe people. Oh, yes. Yeah, I'm kind of like that anyway. So I don't like, it's what resonates with me and gets my wavelength up is being around others who have the wavelengths very similar to what I do. And Jackie, I love the Spotify playlist, so do I. So the reason I'm talking about this state thing is because it is super easy in the journey of being a naturapreneur to get into a state of lack. With everything that's happening in our environment and in our profession at the moment, it is really easy to get stuck. And it's totally okay to get stuck. And the journey that we have is such a long one as a practitioner and as a business owner that you'll have moments of getting stuck in a rut. But the key, the game changer, is to find the things that shift your state, that shift your nervous system, that shift your cells and your biochemistry, because through that, new things can come through. New ideas, new ways of being, new creativity, and connections. And the bliss of it all is that it's happening at NatX. You've literally got today to get a ticket. If you've missed out on, or it hasn't been the right time or whatever, it's literally today. Today's the last day that you can get a ticket to NatX. And I don't want any of you guys to miss out, because everything in NatX has been created to change your state. From the things that you're getting, and I just found out that we are going to be the first tribe in Australia to get Denise Duffield-Thomas's new book called Chillpreneur. We're actually getting it before anybody else in the whole of Australia and New Zealand and the world, for that matter. It's the first box is coming to us at NatX. So that's a gift to you guys for coming to NatX as well. So that's really exciting. From that kind of stuff to changing your state when it comes to things like yoga and breathing. So we've got workshops that are specifically made so that it's not like a thing that you have to do. You just get an opportunity to show up for it. So we've got the incredible Amy running naturopathic yoga both mornings. We've also got the Breathe Me guys, Angelina and Shane, who are running a breath workshop. Now, back in 2014, talk about change of state. I spoke to Mim Beam, and she's an incredible, like, you guys would have to know her. She's just gold. She's an amazing practitioner. And she actually runs Buteyko breathing workshops, and she also teaches it and has used it. And it's been an absolute shift for her clients as well as herself. And I was like, oh yeah, breathing, like, can't be that hard. After doing one of those workshops and working with the Breathe Me guys, talk about change of state, like getting oxygen on board to all of your cells in your brain. Oh, like it feels like you can take on the world, even just to change your energy. You know, that slump you get at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, you're like, yeah, I've got to answer these emails, but I have no idea where I'm going to get energy from. Just to know those tips and tricks to be able to breathe properly in those states. And they do it to music. So they've got music on in the background. And so for all those audible people, you can change your state just by listening, let alone breathing with the music. Extraordinary. Plus we're doing it on the beach. So that happens on the Sunday morning, and doing it in the ocean as well. So every different sense is looked after there. And then on the Saturday night, we've got one of the biggest, most amazing parties with the sacred cacao ceremony. And when it comes to changing your state, of course, we all have some either inkling of nutrition or are very, very well qualified and well versed in nutrition. And the things that you put in you are obviously going to change your state. And so we are creating an extraordinary environment on the Saturday night to really experience what it's like to change your state with everybody else around you in that high vibe kind of feel. To really bring intentionality to the way that we are playing with our herbal medicine. So cacao is, and it's also a nutrient, you know, it's really nutrient dense. So we get to experience that, and then a transformational dance workshop. So with the amount of people who were talking about the Spotify list, I was like, you guys are all on the music and the resonant and the sounds type of thing. And so this experience that we get to go through as a tribe on Saturday night, oh, I can already feel it. Like, it literally changes my state to consider what that's like to be doing that all together. So super excited, because we've created this journey to take you on, not just through listening to others and their stories, but it's all deep dive workshops. It's all actionable, and it's all to create a state so that you can really, truly shift and think about things differently for your business and really create a new direction for what you want to create in 2019. So I'm super, super excited. If you've experienced breathwork, pop in what things that you connect with. A lot of you guys do yoga on the side. A lot of you do some type of other sport. Maybe it's hiking and other things. This is a cool thing. We've got a little flavor of lots of those things happening at NatX, and today is the last day to get a ticket. So make sure if these things to change the way that you are thinking things. And this is the other thing about that. I didn't know what I didn't know. Like, there's so many things that we tend to know and stick with as qualified professionals because we've learnt so much. But there's only this much that we've learnt and that we know, and there is things outside of that knowing that we don't even know that we don't know. There's things that we don't know, and you kind of go, yeah, I don't know a lot about breath work. But there's things that you don't know that you don't know. Like I didn't know it until I experienced it, what that could actually genuinely feel like and what could come through me from the difference of that. So yeah, lots of opportunities, but today's the last day to get a ticket. I just wanted to remind you all of that. Okay, Katie, getting in the water and hanging out with my dog always switches things up. High fives to having a puppy dog and high fives to getting in the water. It's so good. Jody says, listening to Tammy lifts her up. Thank you, Jody. I love that. And there's so many inspiring people that you can surround yourself with or pop in your earphones, right? The podcast that we've got, the Naturpreneur Movement, we've got all these inspiring people, and I got to interview all of them and ask them all about their stories and how they've ended up doing what they're doing. And it's been awesome to do that. And of course, we've got FX Medicine, and we're blessed to have all of these other podcasts to listen to these inspirations. And NatX happens to have 18 of them on stage, all in the one spot just for us. Thanks, Jody. Katie, awesome. I was just reading about her book this morning. I know we're going to be the first in the country to get one, Katie. I'm so excited. Katie says, I bet everyone is deep breathing right now. Yeah, totally. It's, yeah, so much fun. Okay, so for all of you guys who are exploring what it looks like to change your state, I'd love for you guys to take action. Try something that you haven't tried before and see how it feels. This is the cool thing. You can try something and go, oh, that's not for me. So for me, last year was the first time that I had had my first coffee. I was never interested in coffee before. Can you imagine me? Like, I don't need coffee. So last year was the first time I tried it, and I tried it, and sometimes I like the feeling of it, changes my state, and other times the state change that it creates in me, not so much, but I wouldn't know until I tried it. So for any of you guys who are in those moments where it gets tough, in those moments where you are tired, in those moments where you're not quite sure how to push through, when you consider the conversation that we had today, notice where you can get out into nature, even when you don't think you've got enough time or energy to do it. Notice where you might be missing a third space. Notice where you haven't been traveling. If you want to travel, come up to NatX next week, or to the club. We go to Bali every year. So travel and notice the people that you've been hanging around and see what that has for you when in regards to information that you might need to understand where your states come from and what you can choose to change about it. So fantastic conversation. Thank you guys so very much for being here. If this has given you a little bit of an insight or a little bit of a gold nugget or an aha moment, please share it with somebody who you think could also benefit from this conversation. And subscribe over on YouTube or follow me here on Facebook so you don't miss out on any of these trainings. And if NatX is for you, don't get FOMO and be one of those people that next week you just literally can't get a ticket. So come to NatX, and if you are completely unavailable to come next weekend, come join us in the club where we have these conversations and change our state to get the flow that we really want in our lives and our businesses. Great to talk to you guys, and I will catch you next week for another Training Thursday. See ya.